Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Coffee with Nick. This is where we use the fundamentals to find the right stocks and the technicals to find the right timing. So just a quick update on my portfolio. So I have that on my Twitter, which you can follow. My handle is Nick Love Coffee. So quick update here. Yesterday was a good day for my portfolio. Up about 1.1%. I think the Nasdaq was up a little bit. The Dow and S&P were down a little. No trades for me yesterday, so the portfolio is the same 8 names. Tesla was up about 2.1%. XPEV was up about 2.79, almost 2.8%. So these were the two kind of standouts for me yesterday. Right now, about almost 96% invested, 4% cash. So not planning to use this remaining cash to add to anything. I might trim XPEV depending on how it goes today and tomorrow. I think the earnings is out on 12th of August, which will be, I think that would be Thursday, right? So if anything, I might trim about 1/3 of this position going to earnings either today or tomorrow. So maybe I might reduce this down to about 10% of the portfolio. The last few positions that I carried into earnings hasn't worked out so well for me. Facebook, ROKU, Amazon, all were significantly down after earnings came out. So I'm trying just being a bit more cautious here. So, but in fact, Facebook, I didn't sell any of it. It's recovered some of the earlier losses from after the earnings. Roku, I not only did I not sell, I actually added another almost 5% after earnings came out. We'll see what happens. It seems to have stabilized a little bit yesterday in terms of the where the price action is. So hopefully it will continue to do back well. We'll look at charts in a minute. All right. So these are my 8 positions. Just very quickly running through the charts of the 8 of them. Today's video is going to be a pretty short one. Probably wouldn't do don't have a lot to talk about, but I just want to kind of do a quick review of my positions. So Facebook. So here you can see the original drop after earnings came out. Here, right, this day. So about 4%. Then it dipped further down. Then kind of pull up, and then now it's just above the 10 EMA. So looking to me that the price is kind of stabilized as well post earnings. The volume yesterday was actually one of the lowest in recent weeks, right? So staying above this, these 2 black lines that I drawn here, these were the high and the low of the day following earnings. So to me, this will be very positive if the price managed to break above here, this black line, and then stay above that. So it kind of went past that a little bit yesterday, but dropped back down. So 36.5.77, that's the highest. Yeah. So it actually went above this high of this candle a little bit, but then kind of pull back. So but still above the 10 EMA. So I kind of like where it is. Volume kind of drying up a bit. Right, let's look at NVDA. So I think NVIDIA is going with earnings probably around the 18. So a bit more time on this one. I'll probably hold depending on the price action, of course, but I probably want to hold this 5% into earnings plus 5%. I'm okay with that. Bring that into earnings. I like that. I like how it's looking right now. It's above this blue line, which is important to me. This was the high here we got here. And then now it went up, pull back, but so long it can stay above the 10 EMA, stay above this blue line, then I think it's definitely looking positive still. Then MELI, big candle up, on the day after earnings, up almost 13.7%. Slight pullbacks over this couple of days, these 2 days. I would like to add to MELI because I mean I will probably do a review of the earnings in a later video, but the earnings was outstanding. I only have about 5% position. I kind of want to add to this, but not right now. Probably wait for the 10 EMA to catch up, 21 EMA to catch up. If it stays above this blue line, which I drawn to you know this candle here, the low of here, right? If it undercuts this and then back up again, I probably take that as a positive sign to enter at that point. It really depends on whether I trim my other positions as well or not. Zoom, also a big candle here, been pulling back on decreasing volume. Looks okay to me. Yesterday, was early in the trading session, it was actually pretty bad, and then it kind of recovered and stayed above the 10 EMA, so almost flat. So the action looks okay. The 50 SMA is kind of catching up to the 200 SMA. I can't anticipate you'll cross it. The crossover will happen around here, and that might be a good sign for the price to actually go higher as well. Pretty happy where I am Zoom as well. Not planning to. I mean, the earnings is coming up, I think, end of the month, or very early Sep, like 1st of Sep or something. So probably closer to the last week of August, I might trim back the position because Zoom is a much bigger position for me. It's about 15%. So I probably might, depending on where the price is, I might take it down to 10% or even 5% closer to the date, to earnings. TWLO has been consolidating. I originally got my 5% position when it kind of, cut above this blue line, but it did back up, down, back up again. So holding to this position right now, the earnings was pretty good in many areas. We can dive in that later date as well. But the price action the chart looks okay. The 50 SMA has been slowly trending up as well. Been pretty volatile this period of time, but it's kind of been basing around here. Expect kind of build up this and then go back up in the market. Turns out to be positive as well. ROKU, this is what I was talking about earlier when we were looking at my Twitter feed. Big candle here on the day earnings came out, dropped dramatically. I think at one point it was probably down like 8% or something. Then recovered very strongly, and back above the 50 SMA. I actually added to my position around here, I think. Here. Yeah. And then boom. Came back down again. Got rejected the 50 SMA, kind of stabilized a bit yesterday. Volume started to drop below average finally. So I kind of expect it to trend sideways for a couple of days, and then closer to this trend line, we'll see whether it can pick it up. The action will pick up, and hopefully get it above this blue line, which should be very positive. That's the about 4. That's the low of this candle here, right? I have a stop loss here. It's not a hard stop. It's really more of a soft stop. I want to see how the price action is before I decide to exit or not, because in terms of the earnings, like what I mentioned in the previous video, I really like ROKU, and how its ability to monetize the audience more and more effectively is looking so good in many areas. The only blemish was kind of the slowdown in active accounts, and it really is up to you to think about this and decide whether do you feel like active accounts is more reflective of the way ROKU is growing, or is its ability to monetize and increase revenue is going to be more relevant for it going forward, right? I have a Twitter post that I wanted to refer to in a bit, but we would go through the last two positions first. Tesla, very strong price action actually. I kind of anticipated that it was kind of stay above this blue line all the way, but it didn't actually went below that on Friday, but on pretty low volume. But yesterday it kind of bounced back up, also on low volume. So we'll see where that price action goes. But the 10 EMA is almost catching up here already, so which looks to me that's a good sign. And if you can stay above this line, and wait for EMA to catch up and maybe push it up further out, that could be it. Tesla, a lot of positive news over the last couple of weeks as well. Xpeng, earnings is, like I mentioned earlier, earnings is coming up very soon. It's a bigger position for me. I think it's almost 15% position. So I'm a bit more cautious with this position. So I want to kind of possibly might want to trim, depending on how the price looks, how the price action is like today or tomorrow. But I probably want to trim, like, 1/3 of it, so down to about 10% of my portfolio, and maybe put that cash to another position, depending on how these other guys pan out. But it could be one of these. It could be Shopify. I'm looking at that one. It could be Lightspeed. Something else I'm looking at as well. So, but that's so Xpeng itself, the chart looks pretty good. I mean, if not for earnings coming up so quickly, so soon in 2 days time, I probably want to hold this much longer. But God, I'm really cautious at this point about holding any new earnings. I have a good thing about this, but I'm leaning at this point to trimming at least 1/3 of it down. All right. But a lot of positive news about Xpeng. That I saw one that I don't have that here, but it's basically the association of automobile sellers in China saying that the chip shortages seems to be being resolved, and so they expect higher sales in the second half of 2021. So that looks pretty positive news to me. And obviously, Xpeng released deliveries, July deliveries last week, and it was a clear trend up as well. So for Xpeng, I'm a little bit less worried compared to other names because the deliveries, well, they've been doing really well in terms of deliveries, right? So that obviously likely will lead to a decent revenue growth, and so I don't, unlike other positions, other stocks where a lot of people have no data in terms of no visibility of what the earnings is likely to come out is going to look like. With the EVs, especially China EVs, there is some visibility in terms of, because they report all this monthly EV delivery numbers, so there's some visibility there. So I don't know. So I haven't kind of decide completely how I plan to handle this name into earnings. We'll see in a bit. This next 2 days to decide. All right, but the price action is actually pretty good. Like, obviously, as part of the China tech sell-off, it got hurt real bad, but it got pulled up really strongly and good volume as well. And then bounced above this line, which I thought was really positive, but it got pulled back down. But the EMA support it, and now it's kind of back up again. And if you can actually pull over this line again, actually the price action will be looking very positive. The EMA, all the MAs are trending in the right direction. All right, just very quickly referring to this tweet by Marcus T. All right, you can see the Twitter handle here. It's talking about Roku, after earnings, and what he thinks about earnings. A really good take, because it looks beyond some of the headline numbers to understand where Roku is in this entire streaming industry right now. The one that I want to point out that I thought was quite interesting, is this particular line here. Roku may eventually be bigger than Netflix because for subscription services, their revenues, so referring to Netflix here, their revenues are tied closely to the number of active accounts. Different for Roku, where average revenue per user is already $36 with 55 million users and still growing 45% year on year despite COVID comps. Amazing. So I think this is a good take on where Roku is and where how we should think about growth for Roku, because obviously Roku got hit on the first day of after earnings came out, in fact after hours, and then the next day when it opened, largely because of the two things, right? One is kind of slow down in the growth of the active accounts, and two, a reduction in streaming hours. I think most people understand that for Roku, obviously your, like what I mentioned in my previous video, your TV is a little bit different from other kind of software or apps you may use on a handphone. If you're still using your TV, you're still watching, you even you on it once in a while, once in a month, etc., you're still being looked at as an active account, and very likely Roku's active account would not shrink. It will keep growing, maybe slowing down, and streaming hours obviously depends on some external factors like COVID, or even like the seasonal patterns like summer versus winter. But what's really going to be very important for Roku here, like what Marcus here is saying here, is that unlike Netflix, which is a pure subscription kind of revenue model, so more active accounts equal to more revenue, and in fact the growth will obviously be pretty linear, in terms of how it's correlated, except that of course when you increase the pricing of the subscription, but then obviously that will hurt the active accounts. For Roku it's a bit different, right? Like the active users are growing, maybe slowing down in terms of the growth, but the average revenue per user could keep increasing because because it's growing, it's becoming more and more dominant in that space, in the streaming space. More and more advertisers go and look for them. So even with the slowdown in the growth of the number of users, the very fact that reached this big base of users means that their revenue could still continue to grow for a significant period of time. And we've seen that with a lot of big tech companies where user growth may slow down, and then growing slowly for a number of years, but revenue growth can still be very fast. And you've seen that with a lot of, whether it's seen that with Facebook obviously, and among others. So I think this is a good way to think about Roku, and not necessarily just think that, hey, active users has slowed, so this company is no longer growing. I don't think this is the right way to think of something like Roku, because in the end of the day, you have to pay your bills with actual revenue and profits, not with cash, not with number of users, right? So obviously in early days that was tied more closely together, and I think we're starting to see a slight decoupling in terms of the growth rate of users versus the growth rate of the revenue. Just something to think about here, and part of the reason also my that frame of thinking is why I didn't kind of cut Roku immediately when the earnings came out, and I saw that number of active users was slowing down, streaming hours was down. Yeah, so we'll see how the chart continues to work itself, out of this little trout here. All right, we'll see whether it holds up and whether it gets back. So like what I mentioned earlier, a good scenario will be it basing around here, this channel here, between these two blue lines, hit this upward trend line and then bounce up. We'll see if it works out that way or not. Alright, so I don't have a lot today, so that's pretty much it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and if you find my videos helpful, and please help to like and share, and also hit that subscribe button. Alright, thank you.